It's Thursday, October 12th, 2017. I'm your host, Sarah Beal. Thank you for joining us. We have a great show in store for you today. On today's show, we will get an update from Town Manager Mark Els. Then we'll get a finance update from Finance Director Mark Milne. And finally, we will end the show with Natural Resource Officer Amy Croteau. She lets us know about some ponds that were recently stocked with trout and the start of duck and pheasant season. But first, let's get a look at today's top headlines. If you're looking for a way to give back to the people of Puerto Rico, then you can look to the Barnstable Police Department to help you out. Through Saturday, October 14th, the police department will be accepting donations for relief efforts in Puerto Rico. They are looking for new and unused items such as shampoo, soap, toothbrushes and toothpaste, as well as new socks and underwear. Food will also be accepted, including water, canned foods, peanut butter, granola bars, and crackers. For a full list, please visit the Barnstable Police Department's Facebook page. The Adult Supportive Day program is a community-based, professionally operated program at the Barnstable Senior Center, which has been a trusted resource for local families for over 18 years. The Adult Supportive Day program provides a safe, comfortable, and welcoming environment to elders and seniors who cannot or wish not to stay home alone during the day. If you are a caregiver in need of respite or a senior who may benefit from the Adult Supportive Day program, they would be happy to meet with you and discuss how they may help your needs. Please call 508-862-4756 to schedule a tour and a free trial. Oyster season is upon us here in the town of Barnstable. Oyster season will be open in the town, both the south side, Bay Street in Osterville, and the north side, Scudder Lane in Barnstable, on Wednesday, November 1st. You must have a shellfish permit in order to harvest oysters, which you can get Monday through Friday at the Marine Environmental Affairs Office on Finney's Lane from 8:30 to 4:15 p.m. Please remember the limit is a half a peck per week. If you have any questions, please call 508-790-6272. Now let's hear from Town Manager Mark Els. Mark, thank you so much for joining us today. We have so much to talk about, like we always do when you're in studio. So the CCRTA just received $3.24 million more money from the federal government. What can you tell us about that and what that means here in the town of Barnstable?
Well, it actually, they haven't gotten a check for it,
but they will be receiving.
They're eligible
Yep.
through federal transportation funds because they have worked with the Steamship Authority to include their numbers, their statistics relevant to boardings.
Mm-hmm.
They've been doing this for years with P&B bus.
Yep.
Now they've broadened it and they've reached out to Steamship, Highline, Peter Pan as well. And there is an opportunity through a federal program to access additional funding based on those boardings. And they were able to do it with the steamship. So the result of that is this $3.24 million. It would be an annually occurring reimbursement, assuming that the statistics that they're generating hold.
Stay the same, yep.
And it is a shared amount of money. So I think it might be 60-40, 60 to RTA, 40, or somewhere. It's not a 50-50.
Right.
60 going to the RTA, 40 going to the steamship. So basically the RTA will have available to it over $1.6 million more dollars. I shared that with the council. I also shared some detailed information with them about how it would be used in the first year. Certainly, they're looking at buying 3 new shuttles for shuttle service, actually running more routes in a shuttle service in Barnstable. They're looking at some of the money is to be determined how it'll be spent, and some of it is going to be used for or at the RTA, the physical location, to move forward with the transit-oriented development, which is taking that site and turning it into a more active area with, governmental, private, other types of, maybe even residential they've looked at, uses there. So it allows them to begin to move forward with a funding source. So
That's
it's
wonderful.
And reoccurring, which is very positive. And I think probably once they do shuttles here, then they'll look at other locations. I know the town manager from Provincetown asked that question, and they said, yep, they would look to do that next year. And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
It helps us, too, because we've been very actively working with the RTA looking at where we need additional shuttle service. And one of the frequent calls I get are from residents, not only from Barnstable, but from all over the place. But certainly our residents call. They take the bus from exit 6 to Boston because they have different medical services that they want to access up in Boston. And it's a wonderful service that they have to and from. Very reliable, and everybody, works for everybody that I know that uses it, except for the fact that there's no parking at exit 6.
That was going to be my question.
So our residents have been calling saying, what can you help us? What can we do? I got ticketed. There were no spaces, et cetera, et cetera. So we've been talking now for about a year, planning for how we're going to manage this. And there's lots of different locations in town that actually do have parking available. So if we can run a shuttle reliably from the boats to the RTA to the airport to exit 6, it will allow for us to better utilize existing parking, get people from, it also serves on the other end if we time it with the buses leaving exit 6 and when we time it with the boats as they come and go from Hyannis, people will have a very reliable shuttle service. I believe that's where the number of 3 new buses comes into play, and we're hoping to implement that next year. And there's a funding source to allow it to proceed. So that's all pretty positive.
Yeah.
Hopefully it works well. I know the airport has a large amount of parking that isn't being utilized.
They've brought that up at many airport commission meetings, like how can you utilize the parking. So I think that's a great way to have a shuttle that goes from those 3 places and then goes to exit 6 where people can catch the bus to go to their medical appointments or what have you in Boston. I think that's great. They have a huge parking lot there, so why not utilize it?
And hopefully it'll all work to everybody's advantage. So.
Great.
Yeah.
I know another thing that was on the agenda last week at Town Council was a pier in the 3 Bays area. They're going to talk about it they're going to vote on it at their next meeting at the end of the month. What can you tell me about the plans for this?
Well, it's actually part of a bigger look at our waterways in town. And really it ties into our comprehensive water management. And you might not think all of these pieces are related, but when we begin to look at emergency services to our water and our waterfront, when we begin to look at nutrient loading to our waters and our estuary areas, when we begin to look at commercial use of our waters and our water areas, it becomes very apparent that though we want it all to happen and work well together, at times it conflicts. And we've seen that with aquaculture, for example. Aquaculture, I think everybody will say, yes, let's figure out how to do more good aquaculture programs in town. Partner with commercial shell fishermen. Expand to the degree we can recreational shell fishing. Yes, all good. Every single area where we've done that, the residents of that area come to us and say, you've changed my neighborhood. And so we want to plan not just for what's occurring on the in the water with grant areas for certainly commercial people or where we're going to harvest recreationally. We want to plan bigger. We want to start to think about on the north side and the south side. You're going to see a similar request on the north side because there's a more active discussion about additional grant areas on the north side. But there's also weekly concerns expressed by our residents about that activity on the north side. So we want to find a way that all of us can work together, keep that quality of life, but be supportive of certainly our local business. So to come back to the pier question, on the south side, it really is a municipal pier that could be shared with emergency responders. It could be shared with commercial shell fishing or other commercial uses as well as our own use. But really to go through a very thoughtful analysis of where would we want to put that. Now, it might be a simple evaluation, and we won't have to spend all the money on evaluating. It might be to utilize an existing location. It might be to enhance an existing location. If you know much about the use of our marine facilities, though, they're heavily used.
Yes, they are.
In season, heavily. So to just think you can put it somewhere will have an impact on something else, absolutely. So we want to go through a thoughtful review, certainly through all the appropriate processes. We've got, really, we have Waterways Committee, we have Shellfish Committee, we have many committees that interact as we move through this process. But obviously funding is an important aspect of it. So we've asked for it in the 3 bays. You're going to see us ask for it on the north side. North side might be a little bit different in the sense that we really have to look at access to the water, and are we looking at a landing or a pier, or how are we going to do this? But it won't be unsimilar of a process, but it's going to be a little bit different, I think, on the north side when we do it, because there's I think a more standing presence there in some of the residential neighborhoods. Plus, we have Barnstable Harbor.
Right.
In 3 bays, it's a system, obviously on the west side of our town, and they're just different as each village is in each area of our town. So, but it's important we get going on this because it ties into so many other efforts, and we don't want to unnecessarily delay moving forward with something that can be beneficial to many different groups.
Right.
So that's all.
This is an appropriation in order to kind of look into what we would do in order
to evaluate design and permit. If we get to design and permit, if we find that there isn't a need, or we will modify as we go. It's a capital project, so and it'll be a collective effort. I'll bring our various staff, whether it's the harbor master, DPW, whomever.
Excuse me.
Whether it's the harbor master, DPW, or whatever other division or department within the town to interact as we go through the evaluation phase. And then most design permit goes to DPW to implement, and then it could go back, probably go back programmatically to whomever's going to use it. So.
Great.
Yeah.
It sounds really good.
We feel like we need to bring forward these action items. We just had a really solid presentation by our Department of Public Works about maintenance dredging. We've actively been out there looking at our waterways now for years, both from a navigation standpoint and from a quality standpoint, and trying to put in place plans so that we can continue to use these wonderful resources that we have and protect them while we're using them. So it's an ongoing effort, and we wanted to move forward in a positive way. So we've got this order, and you'll see another one coming for the north side.
Great.
Yep.
Sounds like a great plan. I really appreciate you coming in and
Well,
chatting with us about all these different things.
Thanks.
Thank you. My guest today is our town manager, Mark Ells. Coming up, we will learn about the upcoming hunting season with Natural Resource Officer Amy Croteau. But first, let's get a finance update with Finance Director Mark Milne. Thank you, Mark, for joining us today. I know last week at Town Council, you gave a presentation about the financial, how the town looks financially to the Town Council and the school committee. What can you tell me about this?
Yeah, sure. Annually, we're required under the charter to have a joint meeting with the Town Council and the school committee to review the financial condition of the town. So we usually have done that in the month of January in the past, but we felt moving it up earlier in the beginning of the budget process would be more beneficial to the budget development process this year. So we had it earlier and conducted it last week. And so we looked at the financial condition of the town and some of the projections going out for some of the history and then some of the projections for next year on a preliminary basis. So starting with the fiscal year end that just closed, we had a very good year when it comes to our actual budget. Actual revenues exceeded our budget estimates by just over $3 million, and we had over about $3 million of unspent appropriations as well. So we generated a healthy, positive budget variance for the fiscal year that just ended. So it was a good year. Revenues continue to remain strong. This is like the second year in a row that we've seen many revenues in various categories at as strong, some of the strongest levels we've seen in the history of the town. But we're moving forward cautiously because I think we've seen. I think in some of these categories we've peaked, and we saw a little bit of that evidence last year in motor vehicle excise tax, where we actually collected less than we did the year before. Mm-hmm. So we are monitoring the financial health of the town on a regular basis. Again, fiscal year 17 was strong. Fiscal year 18 we just implemented and we're working on now. And for next fiscal year, we're looking at some moderate revenue growth that is a little less than what we saw the year before. Again, for situations like the motor vehicle excise tax, we're not going to experience the growth, but we're going to stay at the same level, slightly less than where we were this year. So we presented all of that to the town council and school committee last week, and moving forward, we're optimistic that the financial condition of the town will remain strong. However, we need to be diligent in managing that financial condition. So we don't want to create the impression that we have a lot more money to spend, because we don't necessarily. What this is telling us is that what we do have, we're managing well.
That's great. It's so important, and I know it's important for the town council and the school committee moving forward to have an idea of how things are looking. Is there any concern that because you did it early, things could change in the next couple of months, or are you expecting everything to stay steady?
We're actually moving forward with a continuation of what is known as the 60-40 revenue sharing agreement for next year's budget, whereby all new revenue growth in the general fund is divided between the municipal operations and school operations on a 40 to 60 revenue sharing basis, respectively. We don't anticipate changing that. We wanted to present that scenario to the joint meeting last week, and there were no questions raised about the possibility of changing that, and we don't see a need to change that at this point. And on the capital program side of things, we do have a lot of capital needs. And if anything came out of that meeting last week, I think both bodies recognize that there are significant capital needs. And going forward, I think we're going to try to grow resources in that area of the budget.
Yeah, and capital improvement projects are always, it's something that we do them every year, and they're looked at and reviewed. So definitely something that will be affected. And like you said, the excise tax, it's about the same. It's not like everyone in the town's going to go out and buy brand new cars in the next 6 months.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So. I mean, we've seen that happen. I mean, with the recovery of the economy, starting like in fiscal year 12, we started to see that happen. People were going out, and they all started to buy new cars. And we saw our revenue in that particular area grow by almost $2 million.
Wow. Over
the past 5-year period. But I don't think, and I said this last year, I didn't think that it was going to be sustainable, that kind of growth was going to continue. However, we were going to level off, and we did. We actually fell slightly. We dropped about $100,000 between fiscal year 16 and 17. Mm-hmm. So I think we've reached that point where there's only so many new cars that people will buy, and the cars are lasting longer now. People are taking longer loans out. Yep. And so they're going to hang on to these vehicles for a few years, and we're not going to see that growth. But I think it will remain strong.
Yeah. Were there any questions that the town councilors asked at the meeting last week that you had maybe thought about or had something that you're thinking about in the future?
We did have a discussion about a comprehensive maintenance dredging program, and we are looking at various funding alternatives to address that need.
Yep.
That actually came right after the financial overview presentation that discussion on the maintenance dredging program, and so we're exploring many different areas as to how we can come up with additional funds to help pay for that program. We're estimating it's going to cost about $1.5 million annually to create a funding source to keep to a viable funding source to implement that program in a comprehensive way.
Yeah, and dredging is very important, especially in the town of Barnstable. We have water on both sides. We have harbors on both sides that are very busy. It's important to keep those waterways open.
Yes, and that adds one new project
Yep.
to our capital improvement program that wasn't in there last year.
Mm-hmm.
So we continue to add more projects to that capital plan, but they're all needed. They're all important projects for our community, especially being a seaside community.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much, Mark, for giving us an update on your presentations from Town Council last week. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Have a nice day.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.
My guest today is Mark Milne. He's the Director of Finance here in the town of Barnstable. Thank you, Amy, so much for joining us today. We're going to talk about some fall recreation activities that have started up for the outdoorsman or
Yes.
outdoors lady.
Absolutely, yeah. There is a lot of stuff that happens in the fall. During the summer, people also, do a lot of clamming, a lot of fishing. But in the fall, the outdoor recreation opportunities sort of shift as the season shifts.
Mm-hmm.
So exciting this week, October 4th, which was yesterday, we had a shellfish relay area open. It's referred to as Bluff Point and is off of Ocean View Ave in Cotuit.
Okay.
You can either park on Ocean View Ave as you would head down to Loop Beach, or you can park at the Cotuit Town Dock, and there is a small way to water that you can walk through if parking runs out, because there's only 2 or so spots there.
Mm-hmm.
We also have a recreational area that reopened at Handy Point, which is down the end of Little River Road near Cotuit Oyster Company. As you walk out into the recreational area, it is the first section on your left that you encounter that was reopened. As people wander out there, you'll notice there's a physical line of bagel buoys, and that is where the closure begins. We always say when you see a physical barrier, it's best not to enter into that area.
Okay, and what is in this area that...
3 other year classes of shellfish that are not currently ready for harvest.
Okay.
This area in general is not productive on its own, but has been very receiving of quahog seed, and so we've been doing crop rotation there for years now.
Very cool, very
Yeah.
cool. We also have Schubel's Pond and Hamlin Pond have been stocked with trout.
Yes, with rainbow trout specifically. They were stocked by the Division of Fish and Game on September 27th and on September 29th. So they've only been stocked for about a week, and we haven't seen a huge amount of traffic there, so definitely plenty of rainbow trout to get there. Coming within the next week or two, they will also be stocking Hathaway's and Lovell's Pond. So they've done Schubel's and they've done Hamlin's, and they will be doing Hathaway's and Lovell's within the next week or two.
Is this something that happens every year, this stocking?
Yes, they actually do it in the spring, and then they do it again in the fall, because these areas are somewhat landlocked and don't have trout existing in them without that sort of propagation.
Right. Is there a reason to do this, or?
I think that it's just, historically it has been done, and these ponds are very good at receiving these animals that are raised by the state, and so they're just good locations. They stock all across the state.
Okay, very cool. Because I know they also do, there's a bird that you guys stock too, right? I know it's not that season yet.
Yes,
is it?
it almost is.
Almost is.
We are sort of breaching into the beginning of hunting season. October is typically when a lot of our hunting seasons start to begin. We will have the opening of duck season on Friday, October 13th, followed by the opening of pheasant season, which is another stocking program run by the state. There aren't many towns that still do stock pheasant. But it is part of the hunter license fee for the year that goes into this program. So we will start stocking pheasant very, very early in the morning on Saturday, October 14th, and then a half hour before sunrise, people are more than welcome to come out to West Barnstable Conservation Area to hunt animals that are stocked at Sandy Neck. It's regulated as a wildlife management area, so you can't start hunting there until sunrise.
Okay. Now, there's a lot of hunters and fishers and things in the town of Barnstable. Are there any specific rules and regulations to the town that they need to follow, or what kind of things should they be aware of?
So the state establishes bag limits for things for the year, like how many you can have in your possession at any time, how many you can best possess for an entire season. Say, for instance, pheasant, you can only take 6 in an entire season. Trout, you can only take 3 daily. So far as we go, there are specific hunting regulations to Sandy Neck that can be found on the Sandy Neck website. And then in the rest of the town, we follow state regulations. So most places you can hunt from a half hour before sunrise to a half hour after sunset.
Wow, very cool. Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to let our viewers know before I let you go?
I do feel that it is important to mention that oyster season will be opening Wednesday, November 1st. I also feel it is important to let people know that it is a 4:15 p.m. tide and that sunset that day is at 5:37.
Yeah.
So it is a short window of opportunity for people to get out the first day, but it will limit the amount of traffic that comes in the first week because they'll be split between Wednesday and Saturday. So.
Yeah.
And expect police detail, as that's pretty standard now, opening week.
How early on Wednesday would you expect to start seeing people head down there?
So for 4:15 tide, my guess is that we will have people showing up to park around noon and then people trying to physically access the oysters upwards of 3 hours prior to low tide.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really early.
It is.
It's kind of nice that it's a little bit later in the day this year. I feel like
it is. It's a day that,
it's been kind of early.
Yeah, we usually pick the day, and it just so happens that, the very earliest we could open Bay Street in North Bay would be November 1st, which happens to fall on a Wednesday, so it made sense to us just open it that very first day.
Great.
All right.
I can't wait. You know, I love getting out and getting some oysters. So
Absolutely.
I'll be down there at some point.
Excellent.
Maybe not that day. Maybe I'll wait till the Saturday. But thank you, Amy, so much for coming in and giving us an update on all of this.
You're welcome.
Okay, great. My guest today is Amy Croto. She's the Natural Resource Officer here in the town of Barnstable. Now let's take a look at this week's community calendar. Local author K.R. Conway will be hosting an adult writing craft class this Saturday at the Marston's Mills Public Library from 2 to 4 p.m. If you have a desire to write incredible stories, this is the class for you. Please RSVP by calling 508-428-5175. There are no board, committee, or commission meetings scheduled for today. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back tomorrow with another great show for you. For Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Beal.